All right, so let's get started and let's create a website with Webflow and SystemFlow. First thing, you'll go to this Webflow's dashboard, and from here, you're going to duplicate whatever newest version of SystemFlow that you have. You always duplicate this core project, and this is because you want to keep it as backup and as a base for all of your future projects. And if you mess around with some projects, you always have the clean copy that you can copy your framework from. So let's create a new project now, and let's rename it to ebook. And save those changes. We're going to go straight to designer here. And first task is just to create the base of our website with SystemFlow elements enabled. So basically what we're going to do is just delete this section on the home page, this welcome section, and we're going to leave this custom code because it enables us, for example, using material icons and a bit more. So in the body of the document, we're going to create a clean version of this ebook website that we're going to make with SystemFlow components. There are two ways to approach a web design in Webflow. So first you can create a layout in Sketch or Figma or XD and then transfer to Webflow, or you can just start with Webflow, and from this empty canvas you can simply select the components from our library. So if you go to SystemFlow documentation, you can go straight to like CTA sections and then select the section that you want to use, then click on the name of this section, and then Command E in Webflow to search, Command V to paste, and return to just put it in your canvas. You can do it like this, and then you can redesign, and you can use our starting page, so this customized page, to set the overall look and feel, so the colors and typography and things like that, like this. So you can easily start with Webflow. Sometimes we start with Webflow. And if we start with Webflow, we usually have something to rely on, even if those are really raw sketches on paper with pencil, or maybe just a raw prototype made in Figma. You can see that this is not made with our UI kit for Figma. This is just some rectangles and shapes and images that I kind of put on the canvas. I've iterated a few times with these templates, and that was enough to just give me a glimpse of what I want to create with Webflow. I didn't refine this layout in Figma. I didn't create a high fidelity version here. I just, create this raw prototype in 10 or 15 minutes, and then I went straight to Webflow, and I started to use these elements from our framework to map all the things, all the components. So usually, even if you create things from scratch, we have something that will support it. If you are using our library for Figma, you definitely have all the components in place, so you can start with the components that we already have, so it's easier. But then again, we have something that you just have to tweak a little bit, or maybe use ready-made component, for example, for cards here and for this hero section. You'd want to go to documentation and then scroll for, let's say, this CTA section, and you're going to find pretty similar thing in there. Or you want to use our card section and then search for the cards that will be appropriate for the design of this course cards. And if you find something that you want to use, you simply click on the name of this element, then go to Webflow, Command E and Command V, paste it with return, and that's it. This is how you can start. All the components are super easy to customize and super easy to expand. So if you unlink this from the master symbols instance, and then if you go to the layout, you'll see that this is usually a grid, or maybe some columns that we have here. You can edit this grid, and from here you can add another one. And if you accept it, select this card, copy and paste, you have 3 cards instead of 2. In most cases, this will just work out of the box, or with some minor tweaks. But if it doesn't, it's still Webflow. So you can use all the Webflow magic and all the power to create even new component like you did in the old days. And it's not even from scratch, because then you'll automatically use all the text classes and all the spacing classes and colors that we have in SystemFlow. So it's even faster. Now let's delete this. And the other way around would be not to start in Webflow with some simple prototypes, but to start in a design tool where you have this refined layout for your website. If you're using SystemFlow for Figma, it's so much easier because then as base components, here you have exactly the same components that we have in SystemFlow. So you start with base components like navbar and hero and feature, and then you restyle it in Figma. You can obviously do whatever changes you need. You can tweak the layout. If you change things like colors and typography, this will be one click in SystemFlow and then everything will have the same typography that you did. But if you make some other more complicated changes and, for example, remove something from here or add something, it's also super easy to use our different components and classes to add this to the component base. But the component base itself is here, and you can simply copy the name of this component base. You can go to Webflow, Command E, Command V, and to return, paste it, and this is the base of the component that I've used in Figma. Later on, it will inherit some styles from the base of the system, and the rest of it, especially the HTML structure, I will tweak separately. But this is not the thing we do at the beginning. First, we're going to add some more components. So depending on your knowledge of the component library, and after a few iterations, you'll basically remember or be able to search for most of the components. It's fairly easy. You now want to add those components. If you have the design in Figma, you can copy and paste. If you don't, you can just use Command E. Now let's search for hero left with image, and I just put in a fraction of the name that I remember, and Webflow's search is super cool. It will let me find the right component and just return, put it in place. Now we're gonna use feature, and that would be feature right with button. So yeah, I need feature right button like this. I can place it in there. Next feature component would be 3 times 2. I need feature and then vertically aligned with some basic structure. So that would be this guy. Let's put it in there. And the next one would be CTA. From CTA, I'm going to search for some submit and horizontal with justified. Yeah, this one. Then I'm going to use another feature that would be feature right with button, this one. Okay, next up would be testimonials with 2 columns, this one. And then we again going to use feature, but this time with the link, and that would be feature left. So yeah, feature left with the link, this one. And last element we need is footer. So let's search for the light footer. Version 1 is just fine. Let's place it in there, and now we have the base structure. So what I had is on a second display, I just had the structure without names, but I pretty much remember all the names of the components. But I had this structure, and thanks to this, you can easily paste them in. And now you might want to change the text and images and also some HTML structure. So maybe get rid of some elements that you don't need or add elements that you really want here, and then replace text, images, and restyle it so that it looks exactly like here. I'm going to show you that in a second, but first what I want to show you is how we at SystemFlow also build some templates for you so that you have ready-made, let's say an ebook template or a business template or a video university template that will launch very soon. So we don't apply any other custom styles apart from the SystemFlow defaults, but then you can take this template and you can tweak it and apply styles on top. So for the templates that we create, I'm going to show you how it's done. Let's first unlink all the symbols, and this is pretty important. So after adding symbols, we have to unlink them from instances, and we do this for all the symbols. I don't know why, but this keyboard shortcut doesn't really work for me. Shift Command A, so I have to unlink them manually like this. And this is pretty important because we don't want to tweak master instances of those symbols. We want to have local copies for this page, and still, if you make some adjustments, we mostly work on different classes. So this will be a SystemFlow system-wide change, but you won't necessarily modify the master component. So this is, as we usually do it, we unlink all the instances, treat it as a rule. Sometimes you don't really need to do it. We also included some overrides for some symbols, especially atoms. For example, if you search for a button and you use this simple button here, Well, you have overrides in there. So you can type in the URL, or you can change the button text. You don't really need to unlink it and then tweak it. And most of the time for buttons, you'd probably want to just use overrides. So for simple elements and atoms like this, we have some simple overrides. But for bigger structures like layouts, you'd want to first unlink it, and then you can easily make changes straight on the canvas. You don't really need to go to the definition of the component, so it's so much easier. And yeah, this is how it works. So right now, what I'd like to do when I have everything unlinked, let me start from replacing the text, and I won't show you everything here, but just some things so that you can get the idea. For example, here, instead of home, I'm gonna put chapters overview. This drop down, I don't really need it. I don't really want drop down here, but I need some extra sections. So here we'll have author, and then we're gonna have reviews. I also want to include a free chapter link. So let's copy this nav link and paste it, and then copy and paste the text. I have it in the doc. And for the button text, we're just going to use get the book here. Also, there's one change I want to include in the nav bar. Now it's not sticky. I want to have this stick to the top of my page. So let's select the nav bar. Let's select sticky, and I'm going to use 0 for top position. And now it sticks. Well, I need maybe a little bit of border, so I'm going to include 1 pixel. We select the navbar once again, and let's use 1 or maybe 2 pixel border, and I'm going to use very light color from my palette, from the style guide, and now it's fixed. It looks pretty cool. Then I want to restyle the other element. So next one, I want to paste some ready-made copy that I have, and let's paste some text here as well. Now, if you want to change this the color of this text, it's as easy as selecting a portion of text and wrapping it with a span. And now you can do it basically 2 ways. There are 2 ways to do it. So first is if you use our color classes. If you go to color, you have different classes. And for example, for this text, I'd like to use this primary 60 color. So that's one way. The other way around would be just going to text color here, and the very same classes in typography when you select color. So we have the very same classes used as swatches. So you can simply select this primary 60 as a swatch. That would obviously create a new class for this span. So maybe in this case, it would be just easier to search for CT and primary and use this CT primary 60 ready-made class. Either way is fine for SystemFlow, and remember that this class is also linked to this color. So if you change this color definition in the library, if you edit this color and then you change it to some other, it will automatically be applied across all the elements with this class applied, and all the elements that has this text color applied as well as a swatch, right? Okay, for further text changes, I'm going to leave them out of this tutorial. It's as easy as copying and pasting the text. For the structural changes, if you want to get rid of anything, it's as easy as selecting and deleting it. And then if you want to replace images, let me first import images that I've created. I've already exported some images, so I can go to assets. And in here, in assets panel, you have this SystemFlow folder with all the SystemFlow images. You can go to custom. So it's a little bit less messy than the one we have. And then I just import some images that I've exported from Figma. Now you can double click on the image, and as you do in Webflow, let's replace it. We're going to use this one, and it's a bit too big, I guess. Let's first pin it to the bottom and to the center. Let's also apply some margin. I'm going to add 38 pixel margin here. You can add margins like this if you want. It's very custom component. It's a very custom element that you can easily add margin from here. If you want to add margin from our margin classes, you can also do it. We have plenty of these different margins classes in spacing and layout section. And for example, if you want to add 48 pixel margin, that would be using spacing, and then this is padding. Margins is M. So you use spacing, margins, and then if you want to apply to all of the values, then you use just a number. But if you want to apply to just top, you're going to use top here. Or you have right, bottom, left, and also X and Y axis that will give you padding across Y axis. So to top and bottom, and across x-axis would be to left and right. So what we're going to use here, we probably just going to leave the margin like so. If you'd like to apply this combo class, you'd go to spacing, margin, then top, and use this 48 margin top, and that's pretty much the same. Let's undo it. Let's leave this as it is. What I want to add here also is maybe let's change the width of this element to 90%, and let's create a bit of box shadow. So I'm going to add box shadow with our dark color, but let's change the opacity of this shadow, and also let's change its preferences so that we're going to use 10 for the distance, and let's say 40, and this looks pretty good. Now let's change overflow to hidden so that this part of the shadow is hidden, and here we have our next section. Let's move to the next section, and sometimes in SystemFlow you just don't have a component that exactly matches what you've created in design, and you need to tweak HTML structure a bit more using Webflow's elements or using some other components that we have in SystemFlow. It's fairly easy. Let me change the structure so that we have video instead of the image here. So we don't have such component in the library just yet, but what you can do is easily, let me pin navigator here, is easily replace the structure of the feature grid, and inside the feature grid let me create and add another element that would be native lightbox from Webflow. And for this lightbox I'm going to select an image. I think that we have for SystemFlow some default image that I can use in here. This is this video image, and this lightbox link would need to go here. Here we have the image. I can get rid of it. And inside of the lightbox link, what I can do is we now have this image only, but I can create a simple structure with a div block. Let's command return and give it a name of video background or video BG. So now I've created a new class, and every time you want to add some custom styling on top of SystemFlow, you're just going to create a new class, whether it's a combo class or just a class for this particular element. So for the video BG, I'm going to put this image inside, and as a background, I'm going to use this image that I have in my assets panel. Let's choose image, and this is the ellipse that I want to use. Let's restyle it a little bit. Don't tile it, contain, and put it in the center. Now, if I change paddings for this video background, I press and hold Option so that I can change top and bottom margins, padding, sorry. I can have it like so. Okay, now let's say I don't want to have this button as well. I'm going to delete it, and in this CTA's wrapper, I'd like to add a list. So let's Command E and let's search for list with icons. Return, and here is the list, and we also have some overrides. So as long as you want to go with 3 list items, you are safe with overrides. But what's most important here is that we have an icon override. So if you go to material design icons library and you want to select whatever else icon from here, so for example this code icon, it's as easy as remembering or copying the name of the icon, and if you want to replace check with code, you simply do it and you have this new icon. Now you can replace the text, but usually you will have like more or less than 3 items, so then still you'd have to right click and unlink the instance, and now you can easily even with navigator, you can go to the list items, you can select and maybe copy and add 2 more, paste them, and you're ready to go. Okay, for this next component, if you want to delete icons and instead of them create captions here, you just delete the icon, and let me check the structure here. Where am I? It's important that you are in the very element that you want to paste into. So for example, in this first feature block, now you'd want to search for tagline and use this tagline and position it here. For the tagline, we might have an override, so you can change the text here. And if you want to apply this change to all of the elements, what I recommend is just going to Navigator, and you can delete all the feature blocks that we have here. And last one, and you can select this one and copy and paste 5 times. And here you have icons replaced with taglines. Now let's go to the other section, and here we have something that I want to completely restyle. Let's select CTA section, and in the styles pane, let me select different background colors. So in SystemFlow, if you go to color section, we have the same colors that you can apply to both text and to backgrounds. Those are basically the same swatches, but you'll use different classes. So for background colors, you'll use color background, and for text, you'll use color text CT. Okay, so for background color here, what I can do is apply a combo class of color, then background, and select my primary, I guess, 100 color. Or I can do the same with the swatch. So in background, I can simply select this color swatch. So that's basically the same. This is done with different class. In this case, you'd have to be careful, because if you apply a different background color from here to the entire CTA section class, you'll change all the CTA sections. So instead, it's better to just use this class, or if you want to change the color of this particular section, you'd want to apply another combo class such as my custom section, and then you can change the color easily from here. The same applies to headings and body texts, and in here it's so much easier to simply add this combo class that would be color, text, and then I'm going to use neutral 10 for both heading as well as this body text. So let's add this color, text, and neutral 10. This is easier than applying some other combo classes such as my heading for newsletter and then changing the color swatch. You just have the class that's applied on top. And here we have, for this guy, I think that I need to use a bit different color than a CT primary 60 to have better contrast. I can easily get rid of this class and use CT primary 40, and it looks even better. Now for the next section, I need to replace this image. Let's double click, replace the image. I'm going to select this one. Okay, now let's get rid of this button, maybe entire CTA wrapper. I don't really need it here. Here I'm gonna Command E, use a tagline. So let's put a tagline symbol in here. We might be able to drag and drop it like that. And now let's just paste some more text in here. For this testimonial section, I'm gonna leave it as is. Maybe just replace the images with stars that I already have here. And for the latter section, what I'd like to do is a bit more tweaking. So I'm going to have this image to be a big version of our book, but I want it to be smaller. If you want to have a precise width of the book set to, let's say, 360 pixels, you can obviously do it. And then later on, you're going to tweak it in the responsive versions. Now let's go to Navigator, and let's maybe pin it for a second so that I can create a structure with the background. So I'm going to do the same thing as I did with video. Create a div block here, put an image inside this div block. That would be command return a book background, BG. And for the book background, I'd like to use alignment to center and justify to center as well. And for background, let me add an image here. We're going to use the image that we have with ellipse, and not this one exactly. So let's select ellipse here. Now let's select contain, let's put it in the center, don't repeat it. And for the book background padding, here we need left and right padding so that we can see the circle, for example, like this. And also for the entire section, I'd like to apply a background color. So this is the name of feature section. It's pretty unique, but here we have feature section as well. So in this case, what I really recommend you doing is adding one class on top of this. Or for these base elements, you can as well change the name right here, because in SystemFlow, we try not to apply any custom properties to this root section so that you can easily rename them. So for example, here, if you want to give it the name of book CTA, for example, you can do it. And now you can, for example, change the background color for the entire section. Let's go to background and select one of our light blue colors. For example, this guy, or maybe a bit lighter. And here we have it. One more thing I'd like to replace is this text link. So let me delete this text link and icon, and instead I'm going to use a button with an image. So I'm going to search for button primary with icon, and icon should be to the left-hand side of the button like this. Here you have the override with the button name. So here is face, and let's change it to verified. and here we have different icon. So there we have another section, and I'm going to leave the footer as is. Now let's check the responsive version of what we've created here, and all of our components are responsive by default. So usually they look really, really good in mobile view, like this ones. However, sometimes you'll have, for example, the component with small image, and we've replaced it with really huge image, and you want to tweak it. But it's fairly easy to do. I mean, it's as easy as editing the grid. If you still want to end up with 2 columns here, you can obviously add columns. It will work. If you want to change this picture so that it's slightly smaller, you can obviously change its size here. So it's really easy. And for some version of components, if you, let's say, want to change the positioning of the elements, we also have some special classes. For example, for text, if you go to our typography section, here you'll find some classes that will let you change the alignment of the text to left, center, or right. So if, for example, you want to change the positioning of this body text here, what you could do is press Command Return and use text alignment center. And this is adding a new class to that. So if I add this class, and by the way, it's always safer to select it with your mouse or keyboard arrows and then press return. It looks good here and in other breakpoints, but unfortunately, this is a new class that I've added. So in desktop version, I'd have this centered as well. So this is not exactly what I'm looking for. I need to get rid of this class. And in this case, if you want to change something really specific for tablet or other responsive versions, our recommendation is to simply add another class on top of it. So you have this extra class here. And then in this extra class, you can simply create this alignment, and now it will be aligned to the center in all of the responsive versions. So sometimes on top of SystemFlow, you just want to add these extra classes, and this is totally fine. And also, if you look at our spacing and layout section, we have this special spacing classes for different breakpoints. It means that if you want to apply margins or padding, but only for tablet and below, you can do it with a class, for example, using this spacing tablet, and then you apply 32 pixel padding to each side of the element, but only on tablet version and below. This is a bit more advanced, and I'm going to explain it in some other tutorials, but you can easily do it, and it's super helpful. So right now we have the base layout for our framework website. Like I said, for SystemFlow, we want to create some starter templates like this so that you don't have to start with the blank canvas. If you want to quickly create a landing page for an ebook, you can just use this starter template. And here I haven't messed around with styling, and that's pretty cool because on top of that, you can apply your own styling. And as you'll see, this is super straightforward. So for example, if we want to transform a website like this, our starter template, into something that we have designed in Figma, we only need to change some images and text and a bit of styling. So what we want to do first is go to project settings to add some specific fonts for our project. So let's go to fonts. And from here, I want to add Google Fonts. I'm going to delete Inter. Let's search for Laura, and we'll use 600. And also, I'd like to use Epilogue. That would be our body text. So I'd like to use 500 and 600 for both, I guess. So let's add Epilogue. I'm going to go back to designer. This is it. And for restyling, you basically have 2 ways. You can either work directly on your layout. So you can select the heading and then apply a specific font for the heading, or you can start with our style guide pages. So for example, if you go to this customize page, first, you have very basic settings that you can adjust. For example, you can change global font, and there is an instruction here. So let's click on body. Then let's select body all pages, and we want to change typography for the entire page to, here we had epilogue, I guess. And there we have default would be, I guess, 400 normal. Yeah, so now we've changed entire typography. We can go to headings and change them directly here in the customize page. But sometimes for simple pages like this, it's easier to work directly on the canvas. So for example, if I want to change headings right now, I go ahead and select headings, and I can change heading XL right now. I can change it to Laura, But if I delete just for a second this combo class XL, now I'm editing the class for all the headings. So if I want to change the font for all the headings to Laura, I'm going to do it like so. And now I can reapply this XL so that I have sizes inherited from this XL class, combo class, but all of the headings, this H2 headings and H1 and H3s are now Laura. So this is pretty cool. If you want to adjust more settings to the specific headings, for example, change some margins or spacing for the biggest headings according to your layout, you can easily do it with this class selected, and it's just as easy as changing this margin. I guess that tweaking things on this specific layout is a bit easier than using the style guide because you simply change what you see on the canvas. But this again requires that you have the starter template or you recreated the component structure first in Webflow, then you can click and change all the elements. But again, as I said, you can use this customize page, or you can go even deeper in our framework. And for example, if you're starting with some ready-made style guide or a design system that you want to map onto your version of SystemFlow, you can go to typography or color, and from here you can select all the elements. And let's say you want to readjust all the colors. You have all the colors here, and you can select and change all the color values. Okay, for colors, again, there are two ways. For example, you can go to the homepage, and directly on the homepage, you can change those colors. So for example, if you select this City Primary 60 class, there's a primary color, and now it's blue. So let's say you want to change it to this green color. Let me sample it and copy the color value from Figma. And now I want to change this primary 60 everywhere across the framework. What I do, and this is super important, what you have to do is select this swatch, but not change the color right now. First, you need to click on this little edit swatch button, and now you can paste the hex value here. Now let me save it, and everything throughout the entire SystemFlow has now been changed to this green color. So you can see taglines as well as buttons and some other colors. However, if you hover over a button, you can see that on hover you have a bit different color. And this is why you need to tweak some more colors. Obviously, you can select it, you can go to this hover state, and now you can change this color to a bit lighter green that you copy from Figma. But I think it's a bit easier to go straight to color. And here we made it pretty easy to copy entire color swatches from Figma to Webflow. You're going to be using this little swatch component that we've created. So if you're using SystemFlow for Figma, then you have all the colors saved as swatches in Figma as well. And what you do if you decide to use green instead of blue, you simply change the swatch. If you change the swatch, it will automatically update on this palette. And then you simply export the swatch palette as a PNG file. Now, if I go back to Webflow, what I want to do is replace this image to the one that I've exported from Figma. And I don't have it here yet, so let me import swatches. And let's have it here. Now, you need to select each of the color individually. And for example, if you want to change this primary 10 color, to this light green, what you want to do is select this swatch. Now go to its color definition, edit the swatch. Now you can use the color picker and pick the color from here. For now, this is the easiest way to change colors. I think it's pretty fast. Usually for projects, you'll have up to 20, maybe 30 colors. You're not going to have 100 colors, but yeah, this is how it works. Sometimes it's a bit pain, especially if I click outside and I didn't save this color now. So what you want to do is go back to this primary 10 and make sure you edit it, make sure you copy, and then make sure that you hit save. And now that I've changed this primary 10 color, if I go back to my home page, and in here, you'll notice that, for example, for Book CTA, I have this color primary 10 set as a background color. What I want to do is simply get rid of it here. But for this hero section, I want to set this color. I'm going to delete the linear gradient and make it our primary 10 color as a background. For navbar, I'm going to do the same. Let's change the color to primary 10. And also, I don't want navbar to be sticky here, so let me just undo this change and change it back to relative. Also, I don't want this border. So let me select bottom border and let's delete it. Now let's preview. Looks better now. All I need to do is replace some images. For example, logo. Let's replace logo. And we need to import images that I've exported from Figma. So let's do it. Okay, here we have the logo. It's a bit small, so let's change the height to, let's say, 36. It's now better. Let's replace this image. Double click, replace image. We need this book cover right there. And maybe it's a little bit too big, so let's change it to maybe 60% width. And now it's pretty much okay. Now for this image, I also want to replace it, and I already have this one exported. There you go. I can also make it a little bit smaller. Now for this background image that I have, unfortunately I've exported this blue circle, so I won't fix it right now. But for the list items, I guess I can do it. So we have this check marks and also the button below them. For the check marks, I think that in material we have this check circle. And what I'm going to do is delete all the list items apart from one. I'm going to make changes to this one, and let me select this guy. What you can do is just select it, delete, and check circle. I'm using my keyboard to just type it in. Now let's select it. This is material icons class, icon list item. I can change the color by adding a class that would be CT primary 60, and now it's green. Now I can select entire item and paste it as many times as I want. Also for this CTA's wrapper, I'd like to add a button. So let's Command E, let's find a button. That would be our primary button and text only. We don't need any icon. Here it is. I can change the text to the proper CTA. Now I also wonder what's the color for hover for these buttons. Let me go to hover state and check which one should I replace. That would be primary 50. So let's go ahead and navigate to colors once more. And from the palette, let's select primary 50. Now I'm going to change this color, edit, and use the one that I've imported from Figma. Save. That should be it. And now if I go back to my home page, all of the buttons should have the proper hover state, and it seems I'm good to go. So now if I want to change, let's say, all the nav links and make them bolder, I can do so. I can change the weight for this font to, let's say, medium. If I want to change a specific nav link like this one and apply a color to this nav link, I can either add my custom class or use ready-made class for color that I have. So for example, CT primary 60 for this element, and I've added it with a class. If I want to change spacings, because across different projects you'll have different margins and paddings, it really depends what I want to do. So if for all body text I want to change the spacing, I can find the instance of body text in my document, then select it. I don't want to change only the large body text, so let's remove this class for a second. And now if you want to apply some, I don't know, maybe extra margin from top, and have it set to 8 pixels. Let's do it. And now let's reapply this class, large, for this particular text. So this way I changed entire framework's body text margin and set it to 8. If you want to make a change to a specific, this text only, you can either add an extra combo class or you can use the combo class that we already have in the system. So for example, let me select this button and I want to add an extra margin top. I'm going to press Command Return to add another class. That would be spacing, margin, and I'm going to use top, and let's say add another 128 pixels. Obviously, this is not really good change, so I'm going to undo it, but this is how you can apply these changes. One thing to remember is that you have different combo classes added to different elements in SystemFlow, the components that we have. So remember not to change properties before you think of classes first. So think of what class you're changing. You're changing the selector that's already here. So sometimes you want to remove part of the selector change the class, change the properties, and then re-add this part of the selector. Sometimes you want to create another combo class that's basically your own class, and this way you make sure that you don't change anything else in the system. This is really up to you, and I think with a couple of projects made with SystemFlow, you'll totally get it, and that would be natural. You have to train this muscle though, and just create some projects. I think for now that's it, because all the other things like replacing text and changing the colors is just repeating myself in this project. So I'm going to leave it here, and I hope that you understand the process, the idea behind it, and now you can start working on your own designs and ideas with SystemFlow.